Hello and welcome to Red Read. Today I want to talk about Faust by Goethe. I'm so glad that I finally got around to reading Faust because A, I was just generally interested in it. B, I'm now glad that I'm able to go and watch all of the great videos that a lot of the YouTubers that I like have made about Faust. But also I knew how important Faust was for a lot of works. So you always see epigraphs from Faust. And so that was one of my favorite experiences as well. Like, aside from the fact that it's just a brilliant story, one of the things I really loved and got out of Faust was just seeing all of the kind of connections click and seeing, oh, okay, we've got this character whose name's Gretchen, but it's also Margarita, and so now I'm thinking of Bulgakov. We get and some other connections that I'll make, which I'll kind of save for a little bit later because they're a bit spoilery, but also got connections to the recognitions and got connections to Krishna Hawkeye's Saturn Tango. In light of that, probably assume that there will be spoilers for this because how my videos usually go, I'll just talk about general impressions of the book, and then I'll go through my reading notes and talk about what kind of stood out to me and what I really loved. Overall vibe. Before I forget, this work was translated by John R. Williams. He translated parts 1, parts 2, and also added introduction and notes. I really liked as well that he did keep or maintain the rhyming scheme, which is, firstly, overall it's a good and pleasant vibe, but it's super important, I believe, in part 2, act 2 and act 3, especially when Goethe and Faust are away from German soil. But my overall vibe and sort of what I expected, one of the things that I loved and that kind of baffled me was when I read part 1, I thought, okay, this is really cool. This is really well written. I'm liking all of this, but this is basically what I expected Faust to be. A man named Faust meets a character named Mephistopheles, and I love that it's abbreviated to Mephisto in the borders. I don't know why, but that's such a pleasant thing to see. But he meets him, makes a deal with the devil, gains this knowledge, and then it goes through this tragedy. He falls in love with this woman named Gretchen / Margarita, and it's just a big old tragedy. And we get to the end of Act 1, it all wraps up, and I thought, oh, okay, that was interesting. That was like that was what I thought Faust was. And so what's part 2 going to be like? And then we open up part 2 and we have this entire change or shift in the way that it seems to be written. We have these long brooding soliloquies from Faust and from Ariel and from this chorus of elves. And then part 2, honestly, what it's like? It is like that meme, the meme of Joe Rogan's dog and then the statue of the werewolf, where it's like a comparison. That was Faust part 1 and Faust part 2 for me, because I was just blown away. I had no idea that part 2 was what it was. So yeah, incredible, mind-expanding reading experience, and I'm just trying to take as many notes as I can just to try and understand what's going on. But oh my gosh, some real trippy surrealism that I absolutely adored. But yeah, if it's not already clear, I really loved this. If you don't want any spoilers, I recommend going and reading it. Also, if you do read it, let me know what translation you read, because that was something that we talked about in our book club was, what translation should we read? Should it be consistent? But then we realized, I felt like I'm going to read this again, and I'm definitely going to read it in different translations just to kind of try and get a general idea of what it's like. So more than happy to get your recommendations on what translations you think are good. Anyway, let's jump in. Let's start talking about part 1 of the tragedy. And a couple of notes. This is, again, it got me, I think I started doing this again around reading the Samuel Beckett trilogy, but I actually started taking some really minimal but somewhat present handwritten notes in the margins. And we start with a prelude on stage, which is the director, the poet, and the clown, and we get a nice kind of meta I don't know why, I just really like books that start with setting up the fact that they're writing a book and they're about to present something. So the director says, how to please the public, that's the test. But nowadays I find I'm in a fix. I know they're not accustomed to the best, but they've all read so much, they know the tricks. And so they go on and, as you can hear, we've got a little bit of a rhyming thing. And the first thing I noticed was that we have this sort of like A, B, C, D rhyming scheme that shows up. And as soon as the clown starts talking, we have this sort of it flipped. So the clown says, I don't want to hear about posterity. Even if I did, what's it to me? It's here and now. They want to have some fun. That's just what they like, what they're entitled to. That's just the sort of thing a lad like me can do. It's what I'm best at when all's said and done. And so there's this kind of inverted rhyme that immediately stood out to me, and it got me kind of looking for exactly how the rhymes were going to interplay and interact in the work, and I felt like it was a really pleasing way to do it. I also love that we have a second prologue. So we have like an introduction and then we have a prologue in heaven, which features the Lord, the heavenly host, and Mephistopheles, the three archangels, Raphael, Gabriel, and Michael, all come in and they're just like chatting. They're talking about... and it starts with Mephistopheles talking to the Lord, saying in a very Book of Job style, like, I'm going to go and try and tempt this man. And the Lord is like, give it a go, basically. And I wanted to read this extract as well. This is something Mephistopheles says. He hasn't changed, your little god on earth. He's still peculiar as the day you gave him birth. He'd live a better life at least if you'd not given him a glimpse of heaven's light. And so just kind of making a reference to man and so on. Something I noticed, I think this was the first time it happens, is that we have the Lord say this line, could there be something good on earth that you've forgotten? And then Mephisto jumps in and says, no, Lord, I'm pleased to say it's still completely rotten. And that was, I believe, the first time that we get one character starting a rhyme and another character finishing a rhyme. And I really liked that the first time that happened was God and the devil. Okay, and so we start the book proper. We have, it's part one, the first part of the tragedy. Night, in a high vaulted, narrow Gothic room, Faust sits restlessly at his desk, and he starts musing, saying, he's studied medicine, law, philosophy, he's worked his way through every school, and even theology, but why labor at it anymore? And he says, but no, you're stuck inside this lair, in this accursed dungeon where the very light of heaven can pass but dimly through the painted glass, immured behind a pile of books, moth-eaten, dusty in the reek of papers stuffed in all these nooks. This is the wisdom that you seek. And so all of a sudden we get a Cervantes type appeal to the reader, and we've got this person who's spent his life approaching or spent his life just soaking in and engrossing himself in literature and realizing that it's not really satisfying, which again, it's sort of the thing where it's like, and I started thinking about this with Don Quixote, where if you, because of the fact that this story or this device is being used in a book, you're kind of automatically appealing and you're relating to your readers because you're just talking about the fact that reading books is reading books. But a quote that I liked is, and still you wonder why this pain constricts your heart and hems it in, why agonies you can't explain sap all life's energies within. And we have this kind of interaction between Faust and the spirit, who seems to be kind of an early sign or an early setup of Mephistopheles. And Faust is kind of battling back and forth with him and says, industrious spirit, to the world's furthest end you rove, how close you seem to me. And then the spirit says, and this was such a abiding thing, he says, you match the spirit that you comprehend, not me. And then Faust is like, oh gosh, and says, not you, who then? I, made in God's image, no match for you. And then we have a knock at the door. Wagner comes in, who becomes an important person, especially in part 2 because of his inventing the homunculus. But and this is just a out of context extract that I really like. It's the sort of thing that you just want to print up and have on top of your desk while you're writing. Faust says, You'll never know another's heart unless you are prepared to give yours too. And another biting satire from Faust, who's criticizing Wagner, but also criticizing himself because of the life that he'd lived. Being such a bookworm, Faust writes, he digs so avidly for hidden treasure and then rejoices when he digs up worms. I like that there's this part where Wagner and Faust are just walking around, and Faust sees the poodle who's going to end up becoming Mephistopheles. And I don't know why this was so goofy, but it was just reminding me of the sort of antics that would come into the Master and Margarita, where Faust is looking at it saying, look carefully, what kind of creature can it be? And Wagner's like, it's just a poodle running around, it's picking up its master's scent. And then Faust is saying, it seems to me it's weaving magic lines around us to draw us into some infernal snare. And Wagner's like, dude, it's just a poodle, it's just some optical illusion, what are you doing, you're tripping out. So this line I highlighted, this is when the poodle is revealed to be Mephistopheles, and he's talking to Faust, and Faust says, now that's a very fortunate mistake. I've caught the devil and he can't escape, and quite by accident it would appear, because there's like a sigil or a binding thing in a very supernatural style, like the TV show. But then Mephisto says, the poodle didn't notice when he came in here, but now the situation's changed, and so the devil could get in, but he can't go. And I really like that. I don't know if I'm just reading too much into it, but I thought about this idea of the concept of vice kind of entering us through base or animalistic urges and acts, and then once we've kind of recovered from that, it's like the devil or the sin is still in us, so the devil can't logically or reasonably get into us, but then once we make a kind of subhuman mistake or error, then the devil is in us. So I just thought that was cool. But then Faust, he's not bemoaning that. He says, it isn't often that you get the devil where you want him, so you don't just let him go. Mephisto appeals to Faust, saying, even though you have this opinion of all the people who are outside, he writes, even in the worst company, you'll find a part to play among your fellow men. And so Mephisto is really just forcing, get out, go, we're going to go and see the world, we're going to experience life and experience tragedies. I'm just skimming through trying to find extracts, and I'm reading, the part at the witches area, and I'm just thinking, gosh, I already want to reread this immediately. So in the section Evening, Faust sees Margarita and falls in love with her, and it's kind of established that she's a very young woman, or a very young girl, basically. I think it's said that she's older than 14, which is not very helpful, but Faust basically says, is there some magic spell around me? I lusted for her, and I find a dream of love comes to confound me. Are we the playthings of a breath of wind? And I like that on essentially the next page, Mephisto is just like, lecherous sir, I beg of you, think of what you really want to do, and please don't waste my time again. So you can have your wicked way with that child, and all I see is the sort of miserable expression you wear before you give a lesson, as if physics and metaphysics too were standing there in front of you. And I like that there's a real big... So there is a charisma around the devil, and the devil gets some really great lines, like, I'd go to the devil right away. That is, if I weren't one myself, of course. And so we like and we fall in love with the devil, and we love that character. But I feel like Goethe still wants to maintain that the devil is the devil, and he will use the devil to satirize some ideas that he kind of disagrees with, especially in part 2. I don't think it's so much you're meant to just unequivocally love the devil like how we do in The Master and Margarita. And a really biting satire or criticism of the church taking donations. Mephisto says, a Christian act, for there's no question that victory lies in abnegation. The church has an excellent digestion. It's gobbled up countries by the score, but still has room for a little more. Only the Holy Church, dear ladies, can properly digest the devil's wages. So when Faust is walking with and kind of courting and falling in love with Margarita as a sort of wingman, Mephisto is walking with Martha, and I really liked this line where Martha says, on all your travels, sir, you mean to say you've never lost your heart along the way? Mephisto, proverbially, of course, we're told a good wife and a home are worth their weight in gold. Martha says, but have you met no one for whom you really care? And the devil says, I've always found a civil welcome everywhere. On the next page, Margarita pulls out a flower and does the he loves me not, which of course is making me think of Shrek. And I was just wondering, I wanted to ask, is this the first time that happened? Was that already an established tradition, or had that appeared in other works before? But yeah, I just thought it could be cool if that was the first time we ever saw the he loves me not theme or idea. I love this so much. This is Mephisto jesting with Faust, who Faust is sort of bemoaning, saying, "Oh, can you not understand what new vitality this barren solitude inspires in me?" And the devil decides to come out with this great line just talking about masturbation and says, "Oh yes, it must be heavenly to sit the whole night through out on the mountainside among the dew, embracing earth and heaven with ecstatic bliss, imagining a god must feel like this, whose spirit penetrates the marrow of the earth, rehearsing in yourself creation's very birth, and leave no limits to your grand ambition. Love's heady rapture holds you in its sway, all earthly crudities just melt away, till finally your lofty intuition ends in, well, I'd hardly like to say." So this is a slight upcoming spoiler for the recognitions, but one thing that was cool that stood out is that we have the section Night, the street in front of Gretchen's house, Valentine, a soldier who is Gretchen's brother. And so Valentine goes on and says, "When I was drinking with the rest, they used to argue who was best of all the girls they ever knew, the way that soldiers always do, blah, 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 blah." He goes on to just say, no one could hold a candle to my sister Gretchen, which is kind of weird, and it's this like what's going on here, but it made me click and realize how clever of a name Basil Valentine was for that character in the recognitions, especially considering the whole spurned lover thing that happens as the novel develops. And then, of course, it lines up with Basil Valentine, the 15th century alchemist. It was just a really clever name on Gaddis's part. Another fun, snarky devil remark, Mephisto says, so after Faust, maybe purposely kills Valentine, and says, and Mephisto's like, "We got to get out of here." Mephisto says, "I'm on good terms with the police, but even I can't get away with murder. That's against the law." A reference to The Master and Margarita, where we get the witch grease gives us all a thrill. For a boat we use a rusty pail, and any old rag will make a sail. If you don't fly now, you never will. And this is just in the section, it's the Walpurgis Night. And so, yeah, I was just thinking about the section in Master and Margarita where, she gets greased up. And then Mephisto later on that page says, "I'll have to show them who's the boss around here. Stand back, Squire Voland's here. Good folk make way." And so Voland is the name of the devil in The Master and Margarita as well. This was cool. Still in Walpurgis Night, is Faust sees what he thinks of as an illusion of Gretchen, and he goes and says, "I'm seeing her, but her gaze is lifeless, cold and dead, yet that sweet body Gretchen gave to me, that is the breast on which I laid my head." And Mephisto says, "You unsuspecting fool, that is her sorcery, for everyone can take on a lover's shape. What anguish, what ecstasy. Now," says Faust, "this vision holds me fast, I can't escape, how strange. Around the lovely neck I see, no thicker than a blade, a single red and slender line drawn like a scarlet thread." And so it's actually, he's seeing Medusa. And that was something I really loved, because I talk with my brother where we try to find new ways, new interpretations of thinking about these classic myths, and just Medusa as being the embodiment of anything that paralyzes you or stuns you. And also what's cool is that if you look it up, a Medusa is a jellyfish. In the next section, A Walpurgis Night's Dream, or Oberon and Titania's Golden Wedding. So the obvious thing that's standing out is that we've got a Midsummer Night's Dream kind of vibe going on, but I also wrote that we got a sort of Hamlet-esque play within a play. Let me know if that sort of play within play or performance within a play also shows up in A Midsummer Night's Dream. But the thing that stood out to me is that we get this long deluge of a lot of characters. And so I'm recalling the play that happens in Ulysses that seems to introduce like 400 characters, and also the party scenes in the recognitions that just have a bunch of people talking all the time, and it's really hard to follow exactly what's going on. In this, we also have like concepts talking. So we have the dogmatist, the idealist, the realist, but then we also have the will-o'-the-wisp speaking. We have, and I noted this one, a shooting star that says, "Once I blazed across the sky, leaving trails of flame. I fell to earth, and here I lie. Who will help me up again?" And that was just a nice little poetic extract, but that idea of concepts being manifest and being brought on stage just comes completely into fruition in in part 2. And in the very last section where we have Faust and Margarita, Margarita kind of prefaces it. She's in a dungeon, it's night open. She's in a dungeon, and then she says, "I'm so young, but I am not, alas, too young to die." And then we get some she's unable to sort of see, but Faust comes to try and save her, and she says, "How is it that you don't recoil from me? Do you know who it is, my friend, you have set free?" And she's just filled and riddled with this guilt. She's like, "I killed my mother, I drowned my child, blah, 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 blah." And of course it is all very tragic. I don't mean to trivialize your tragedy, Margarita, but what I really liked, last couple of lines when Margarita gives up the ghost and she says, "Father, I am yours, do not reject me now. You angels, all you hosts of heaven, I pray, surround me and protect me now. You horrify me," Heinrich, who is Faust, "more than I can say." And then Mephisto says, "She is condemned," but then suddenly a voice screams, "Redeemed." And Mephisto is like calling Faust, like, "Here to me, away, we gotta get out." And then a voice from within is screaming, "Heinrich, Heinrich," and that's the end of part 1. And wowza, gosh, I'm realizing I do need to really split this up into 2 different videos because this is already so long. But oh gosh, I love part 1 so much. I'm very keen to get back in and reread this work. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. Next week we'll be talking about part 2.